Hello, I'm Stuart. I'm with my colleague Howard and we work for Environ. Environ are a technology company who work with organisations of all sizes across a variety of technologies. One thing that a lot of our customers have got in common is they love tablets. Tablets look good, everybody wants one, and they work well. But how can you improve business efficiency with a tablet? Well, one area we speak to a lot of people about is using tablets to capture data in the field. It replaces paper, improves efficiency, and puts the tablet to good use. Over the next 20 minutes we're going to show you how you can build a form with Infopath, connect this to a back-end data store such as SharePoint, and push this out to tablets with Formotus. In effect, we're going to show you how you can build your very own mobile business app. The scenario we're going to use is that you're a car rental company. You need to inspect cars for damage when they're returned and check them back into the system. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so this is Infopath. What we're going to do to start with is select a blank form, open that up, and now what we need to do is get our table layout. So just get rid of the template that was in there and build a custom table. Just make sure everything's centered and justified properly. And this is really just building the overall layout of the table now. What we can then do when we've got the overall layout is just start to shade and colour this in the corporate colours. We're obviously going to use Environ's corporate colours here, but these could really be anything. Okay, so just adjust these table properties. I'm going to merge a couple of cells now so that we can start to import our company logo and also start to add some of the text into the form. Again, make sure everything's center justified. Keep it looking neat. Let's name this car inspection form. Original name. Just go and get the company logo now. Make that a bit bigger. Let's take a guess, 60, yeah, perfect. I always think it's worth spending a little bit of time in getting the form looking right. There we go. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to add some fields into the form. So we highlight these boxes here on the left. Again, make sure everything's centered. Okay, let's name a couple of fields here. So start with registration, name, email address, date, and is there any damage? Question mark. So what we're going to do then is leave a couple of lines and have a comments field. And finally a signature field. Now select what type of data we want to collect. So we just want for the registration a drop down box because we're going to go and fetch that data later. Name can just be a free text box. Same for email. Text box again. Tidy that up a bit. For date, we'll put a date picker box in. Is there any damage? This is again going to be a drop down box. Comments is just going to be free text. Make it a bit bigger though for this one. And same for signature. So what we're doing here is just really building up the body of the form. Okay, so up till now we've been using very standard Infopath controls. What we want to do now is put a section in. The reason for putting this section in is so that we can hide or show pockets of information later on that will be based on some rules that we will come to define. So if we just create this section here, need to make the section large enough for what we want to then do. Name this as diagram. I'm just going to add a legend here, which is so when people are annotating on the diagram, they know some of the prompts. And then the second piece is a photo. So what we're going to do now is add some of the rich controls that Formotus bring to the table. So in this first box we're going to have this as an annotate control. So we just need to set the appropriate picture here, which in this case is going to be the diagram of a car. Insert that into the form on the right size, of course. Need to make it a little bit bigger. And what you're going to be able to do then is when this is on a iPad or an Android tablet or even a smartphone, you'll be able to draw directly onto the diagram using the touchscreen of the phone. So there's a diagram, and then in a similar effort we're going to add a photo control, and likewise if your tablet or phone device has a camera on it, you're going to be able to take a picture off the camera and import this into the form, or even take one from the library and import it in. So we'll again just make this nice and neat. We'll get it to a good size. Perfect. And then finally we're going to add another annotate box as a signature, and likewise we can use a touchscreen device then to actually sign the form. Finally we're going to add a control button in the bottom that we're going to later use as the submit button. I'm just going to make that a different colour to make it look a little bit more interesting and match the company colours, of course. Get that positioned right. Okay, that's all looking good. Just look at the drop-down box properties now. So there's the registration one that we're going to be able to go and fetch some information from SharePoint later on to populate that box. We're just naming these fields as well. That'll help us later on when we're looking to promote fields into a back-end data store, which we're using as SharePoint for today. And with the date, what we'll do is we'll set it to default to today's date as well, just for ease. So when people open the form up, it will be the correct date. So now what we're going to do is set some of the rules that we spoke about earlier for this section. So the rules are going to be around the damage. Is there damage? Question mark. So we're going to say when there's no damage will be the first option, and the second option will be yes, there is damage. So then if we actually go and set the rules, so rule 1, new, and what we're going to say for this is damage is equal to no, and then we're going to say hide this control. So what we're going to do now is publish this form. So we're going to publish it to a blank SharePoint site and then create a new SharePoint Forms library as we publish. We'll call it New Assessments. Okay, and now what we want to do is promote 5 fields of data from the form to SharePoint column data. We're going to pick registration, name, email, date and damage, and then as we submit the form we'll be able to see those pieces of data come into the SharePoint list. So now we're going to go and have a quick look at the SharePoint library. If we add a document, we'll be able to open Infopath and see the form. We should be able to test the damage as well. Yeah, so there we go. So we say yes, the diagram and photo control appear. That's all working fine. We can close this form now. So now what we're going to do is add some data connections in. So we need to create a new SharePoint list within the site we created earlier. custom list is always the easiest to use here. We're going to call it reg, and then we're just going to populate that with some test data. In this example, this is going to be a few car registration details, and the reason for doing this is later on we're going to connect this up to the form. So when you're in the form and you select reg, you're going to be able to see this list, and as the list is updated, the form will update as well, so that you can therefore read the latest registrations from your tablet device. So here we go, we'll just make up some registrations now. We'll just put one more in for luck. Okay, there we have it. So what we're going to do now is go back into Infopath, and we're going to integrate a receive data connection from that list of registrations we've just made in SharePoint. I'm just going to take you through that now. So we need to tell it where the source of the data is, give it a location, and we only want to pull in the title data for this one. No registration, that's it, done. Now we're going to tell it to go and get the data from an external data source, and tell it the type of data it's bringing in and the value of that data, and that's it. Registration data connection done. So now what we're going to do in a similar fashion is create a data connection for the submit button, but this is going to be so that we can submit the form and the data in the form back to the SharePoint library. So as before, we need to tell the form where it's going to go. And then what we're going to do is just set up an auto naming convention of the form as well, so that when you're looking in SharePoint you can see the date and time of when the form submitted will be the form name. Just makes it a bit easier for going back in and seeing which form is which when you're trying to sort through a lot of data. Just tell the action here again, so it submit, labels the form, and there we have it. So we're pretty happy with that form now, it's looking good. So what we're going to do is save the form and publish it. So we need to update it to the SharePoint library as well with the changes. Now if we go back into the SharePoint library and if we add a document, there we go, we see a version of our form opened in Infopath. If we go here, here's the registrations that we entered as test data, pulls them back, we can fill in a name, of course what we can't do on this test is annotate on the picture or sign the form, just because we don't have the we've not got a touchscreen laptop here. But these are the controls that we're going to use on our tablet or phone. So if we submit that and go back to our SharePoint library, just need to refresh it. There we go, we can see the data come in, we can see the naming convention of the form, and we can see the promoted fields. So now we're happy with the form, what we're going to do is upload it into the Formotus Cloud Console. And when you sign up to Formotus, you have access to this. And this is where you store your blank forms and you can deploy them to various users. So what we need to do here is we need to attach the credentials of the form. This is because we've got the data connections of both the car registration and the submit button. So we need to tell Formotus in effect what the credentials of the SharePoint site are, so that when we're in the field we can go and query the data and also submit that data back into the SharePoint site. Perfect. You can see we've got the two data connections there, one for the car reg, one for the submit. Now we need to go and grab our form, give the form a name, and then we can upload that. And we're going to make this available both on Android and iOS devices. Windows devices will be available, maybe if you're watching this on Dave they're already available, and then we can deploy this to our users. So here we can see we're going to deploy this to the car inspections account, and that's it. Form built, uploaded to Formotus and deployed to devices. So we're now going to show you what this looks like on the tablet. So if we log into the Formotus app here, as you can see we're on a iPad currently, so this is the iOS platform. This is our forms library, and there's our form, car inspections. So let's open that up. And here's our form, exactly as we saw it on the laptop. So if we go into the registration link, there's our SharePoint data. So if we just fill in a few of these details here, please bear with us while we complete this. As you can see, the date is auto populated as we set it in Infopath. You can change this if you need to. And if we say yes, there is damage, we'll see the hidden control appear now, where we've got the diagram of the car. So we can annotate on this very quickly. So let's do it in red so it stands out. So we'll say there's a scratch along this side panel. Maybe there's a crack at the front here. Okay. Now what we can do is use the photo control. So this will activate the camera on the back of the iPad. If I just lift this up here, please bear with me. We've got our hire car, the 18 van, it's come back in. So we can take a picture of that. In real life, of course, you could take a picture of the specific area of damage, and you could have more than one picture as well in the form. We've just kept to one for time purposes. So there it is, now embedded into the form. Then we can actually annotate directly onto this as well. So let's say that's where the scratch is, and the crack's there at the front. Okay. Now we've got this free text box for comments. So let's just say on here, scratch to side. Okay. Now again, we can use the signature feature here. So there's my scroll, and there we go. You can look back up at the form. There's the all the data at the top, the diagram and the picture. Now if we hit submit, that's it. So we've submitted that. If we look at our SharePoint site here and just refresh the page, there we go. We can see our forms arrived already. Back in the office. There's the field data we promoted. And if we open the form up, yes to that. There's our form completed on the tablet. As you can see, it's got the sketch, it's got the picture, and it's got the signature at the bottom. So in a real world example, we could be out in the field anywhere really. The SharePoint site's back at head office, and there we go. We've submitted the data without the need for paper. We'll now quickly show you the same on an Android device. So here's the Formotus Central application again. Here's our menu, and there's our form that we deployed earlier. Just download that. Here we go. So as you can see, exactly the same form as on an iPad. Here we select the registration. Works slightly differently in that it shows a menu at the bottom of the screen. If we just select that middle value, again we can enter our details here. So let's put Howard's name in, email address, date control works in exactly the same way as well, as you'll see in a few seconds. One important thing to note with the Formotus application is that you don't have to be online for it to work. These forms can be completed offline and then cached locally on the device until you either get a 3G signal or 4G, or you connect to a Wi-Fi. So that makes it really useful if you're working on a device that maybe doesn't have a SIM card, or maybe in an area of poor coverage. So if we just say this car's got a scratch here, again we'll take a little picture of our rental 18 van. There we go. Oh, it just seems to have rotated that, but not the end of the world. We can still work with this. Let's say there's a scratch there. Oh, apologies for my drawing skills. There we go. That's saved into the form. Just put on the form that there's a scratch on the side. I want me to auto check now. Apologies, let's get rid of that. Again, let's put my scribble here. And there we have it, the completed form. Let's submit that. We are on a data connection, so this will go live into the SharePoint site. So if we go back up here, here's SharePoint. We'll just give that a refresh, and there we see straight away the second form we've submitted from the Android device is there. We can open this up and have a quick look and make sure the data's there. There we go. So there we have it. We've shown you how to build a form in Infopath, upload that to Formotus, and then deploy it to tablets. We've used a very specific example of a car rental company here, but as I'm sure you can imagine, there's lots of different use cases for this. And as we speak to our customers, we're finding out more and more scenarios where this can be useful. And with the SharePoint integration, we really feel this is more of an application than simply putting a form on a tablet. If you've got any questions or queries, please feel free to give us a call. We're more than happy to have a chat about this technology and maybe even show you some demo forms that we've got aside from the car inspection. So thank you for listening.